Awesome.
Yay, we're here.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker. It's a Thursday, June 19th, and welcome to the show. Olga Lautman is here, the creator and author of the Trump Tyranny Tracker, as always. And it's so good to see so many of you joining us. We really love the support you're giving the show and the tracker. Hello, Debbie. Hello, so many names. I can't even read them. They're coming in so quickly. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the show. We got a full lineup of things to talk about today. And they span the entire spectrum of authoritarian creep. Will take you through everything that's been going on in the last 24 hours, or at least some of what's been going on in the last 24 hours as the authoritarians continue to take hold of America. Did you see Obama's comments, by the way, Olga, yesterday?
I missed it.
Well, he basically said that, America is dangerously close to an autocracy. He said that what's happening now is um, we're all being tested in some way, and we're going to have to then decide what our commitments are. It'll be uncomfortable for a time, but that's how you know it's a commitment, because you do it when it's hard, not just when it's easy, not just when it's trendy, not just when it's cool. And he really does go on to say that if you follow regularly what is said by those who are in charge of the federal government right now, there's a weak commitment to what we understand, and not just my generation, or at least since World War II, our understanding of how a liberal democracy is supposed to work. Basically, calling them out as saying it's consistent with autocracies is what he's saying, which is what we're doing in our Authoritarianism 101 course. Every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we're tackling the exact things that Obama's talking about. What are the things that are becoming are the signs of authoritarian creep, and what are the tools that you can use against them? And next week on Tuesday, we've got a very exciting session. It's all about the surveillance, but also about law and order and how that's being implemented by this current regime.
Yeah. Yeah, next week it's going to be good because we already covered the narrative part, controlling the narrative and information space. We covered the creating the enemies part, and now we're going to go into both building a police state and a surveillance state. I'll bring the examples from Russia and what happens there in a typical day and how the state was consolidated. Again, this goes for, back to the Soviet Union, but how in more recent times Putin has consolidated, and really turned it into a police state to the point that, and a surveillance state to the point that you can't even like a post without being arrested. So, this is something
Happening
they're
in real
building
time
here.
here. Absolutely. Well, let's get into the Trump Tyranny Tracker for today. It's day 150 of the Trump administration, if you're keeping count, and there's some disturbing developments. Sergio Gore is Trump's personal director, in charge of vetting over more than 4,000 executive branch staffers. He's refused to submit the mandatory SF-86 form required for permanent security clearance. Despite holding only interim clearance and wielding immense influence over appointments across the federal government, Gore has resisted the process. He's citing distrust of the deep state and the FBI. The man deciding who gets vetted won't get vetted himself. There's some deep suspicions that he is perhaps operating for, others, not just for Donald Trump, as he's vetting all these individuals that are coming into the Donald Trump administration. This is a shocking story.
And he was around the first time around. First of all, Sergio Gore is not his real name. I actually tracked down his real name in Russian press, and he was born in Moscow. So maybe
Oh, not in Balta, because he was saying he's born in
no,
Balta, but that was obviously a lie. So he's a
no,
Russian-born guy. Wow.
he was born in Moscow. His family migrated, and then from there they came here. And I have his full name, and I started actually doing a deep dive into him. The fact that he doesn't want the FBI or anyone to vet him. Frankly, I can understand why,
Probably a
because
reason.
he can't even decide where he was born. This is extremely dangerous. He is one that I've had, on the radar for like a decade now. One of these, people behind the scenes who was influential the first time around, and here now he's actually putting people in the government. And the fact that there is no vetting for him and many others with very questionable past, to say the least. um, the problem. I mean, this is really a problem, and this is something that the U.S. media should really be focused on because, for all we know, we could really have a Russian intelligence agent. I'm not saying he is,
But he
but
could be. We don't know
he
because he's
could
not
be.
being
He's
vetted.
not being vetted, and we
And
can have a Russian intelligence agent not only collecting the information of people for the working in the federal government, but also, um, involved in vetting people to go into the government. So he can
yeah,
literally create a whole FSB task force inside, because he's in charge of the
I
vetting.
mean, that's the key thing for me is he's a gatekeeper for who gets hired into the Trump administration. So is all that information about who gets hired into the administration being run by through another agency, through potentially a foreign agency? That's what that could lead us to. And if that's the case, that is, unbelievable that we're having the people hired by the federal government vetted by foreign intelligence agencies. That's unbelievable.
I mean, it can very well be. And just to give an example, about over a decade ago, because Russia runs so many operations, I mean, it's nonstop 24/7 when it comes to Russia. Over a decade ago, I would say somewhere like 2011, 12, um, Russia, wanted to collect information on former military members. So they really not only set up a site, but also infiltrated a site, um, to provide like classified ads for jobs. And in this process, they were collecting the emails, the addresses, the phone numbers, date of births, and everything of our former military members. This just shows you, one operation that they did from the inside, from the outside. Now imagine having this happening inside the
Yeah.
government.
It's unbelievable. Leaves us so vulnerable. Moving to foreign policy, Trump is weighing U.S. strikes on Iran while deliberately excluding his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, and his DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, from key decisions. Instead, he's relying on a tighter circle, including Vance, the VP, of course, Rubio, Ratcliffe, and his General Kane. This bypassing of his own cabinet appointees comes as tensions with Iran escalate, with Trump reportedly still considering whether to launch an attack and reconsidering Gabbard's future after she challenged his authority by posting warnings about a nuclear war. This is a big fracture that's happening inside the Trump coalition.
It's a fracture, and it also is fascinating what is happening. First of all, let's go back to Earth One of
Yeah.
the United States of America. The fact that the defense secretary and the director for national intelligence are being sidelined from a war. I mean, a potential war that we're about to get involved in. This is insanity. I mean, in this case, thank God, because this is cutting off, at least via Gabbard, a pipeline to Russia. And you have to see the Russians, by the way, in Russian media. They're absolutely like freaking out, like with Gabbard being pushed aside. But we're about to put America potentially into another war.
Mm.
Not a war that we started, not a war that someone started against us. And you have the two main officials being sidelined as this is, being planned out. And then, the article, Political, reported that, they are focusing on the more experienced people. Are you kidding me? The whole
Vance?
cabinet is
Yeah.
clowns. I mean,
Yeah.
Vance is experienced. The only one out of them is Rubio, and Rubio's lost. I mean, we need to go back like a few years before to find the Rubio from the past. But
And the
this
only
is
person who's actually been
extremely.
involved in any war, is a general, of course. But then, at least Hegseth has been a military soldier.
But
I
would
mean,
you want
you can't.
Hegseth?
No, I wouldn't. But he appointed the guy as the Secretary of Defense. So bring him to the table. You can't not have. You can't prosecute a war without the Secretary of your Defense there and without the Secretary of Intelligence there. You need these people to
I
help you.
mean,
And of
in
course,
this
they've stripped
case, thank
apart.
goodness.
Yeah, no. And they've also stripped out the National Security Council that doesn't do what it used to do either. So, who is giving him advice under these extraordinary circumstances? Who is giving him this advice is coming from
Mossad.
Vance?
Oh, don't worry, Mossad.
Probably.
That's who's
Probably.
giving him advice, not any U.S. official. But the other part of the story that is something that again it would be good for media to zone on is the fact that you had Israeli officials come for a meeting with Trump officials. She clearly knew about these plans that Israel was preparing to strike, and then she puts out this nuclear war video right after this meeting and 2 days before Israel launches the attacks on Iran. So you have the, it's funny to even say, Director of National Intelligence literally putting out a warning, which she's sending a message to Moscow that, there's something about to happen because clearly
Really.
she was communicating with someone. And I mean, I'm shocked that Trump, with his small size brain and that's too busy on corruption and seizing power, that he actually took notice of this video. And this video was, the reason that now she is being pushed out and potentially will be kicked out of the regime. So,
I mean, that fracture is also showing itself with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson's interview that everyone's been talking about. I mean, there really is sort of the Russian wing of the GOP, of the MAGA alliance that is opposed to an attack on Iran in this particular case, and then the rest of them, which seems to be in favor of it, and then that's where the big fault line is happening.
can I actually just spend 1 minute on this because
Yeah.
I am glued. Glued. I mean, between Russian media, the Russian propagandists, and what's happening in U.S., I've never. So Russia, for those who don't know, I mean, Iran is one of Russia's closest allies, going back to the Soviet Union. If they have one of the closest, I mean, Russia, doesn't have friends, but they are very opportunistic. But in this case, Iran is one of them. Uh, Russia does not want any regime change, does not want any war, and is frankly furious right now because you have Israel destroying a lot of military facilities, which is disrupting Russia, the shipment from Iran to Russia for their drones and whatnot. And at the same time, Russia is the main one that has been supplying nuclear materials to Iran. They've been involved in their nuclear project for 2 decades now, and then in recent years have started helping them, to push us towards an active nuclear program where you can develop nuclear bombs. Anyway, so Russia is livid. And starting Friday, it was Thursday, I can tell you exactly the time. It was 2:30 in the morning, Thursday going into Friday, US, New York time. Russia suddenly shifted their tone and literally they sent a message because it was 9:30 Moscow time to all their Western shills, get the fuck out right now and you better stop this war. And all you saw is this information operation shift to attack Trump. And there you had Bannon come out, you had Carlson come out, you have Matt Gaetz come out. He's like right now attacking Iran and Israel and trying to stop this war. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then all their gray zone, like the like left wing of
Yeah.
the party, the Matt Blumenthals and the rest of them. Literally, they all got the talking points, and you see the same talking points. On top of the fact that Putin called, Trump on Saturday to allegedly wish a happy birthday. Lev will appreciate this.
Mm.
And I made a joke before. They probably started with like, suka blood. You better freaking stop this war right now. Because he like Russia's trying to pull Trump one way
Mm.
towards them to stop the war, and then you have Israel pulling them towards other, and it literally is a fight not between two intelligence agencies, and you're seeing it physically, and then the operations behind it. So this is just such a fascinating thing. I really I'm glued to what
That is
is
such good
happening.
analysis. And, the world hangs in the balance of what Donald Trump decides to do. I mean, it could change the trajectory of the Earth's future. And based on these two intelligence operations running against each other, and he's in the middle. Fascinating analysis. Thank you so much for that, Olga. Let's get to the other stories in our Trump Tyranny tracker today. A coordinated expansion of immigration surveillance is underway on multiple fronts. So The Department of Homeland Security has restricted congressional oversight by requiring 72-hour notice for ICE detention center visits and completely barring lawmakers from field offices. At the same time, Trump has ordered U.S. missions abroad to resume student visa processing with mandatory social media monitoring, and they're particularly looking for criticism of U.S. policy or support of Palestine as grounds for denial. And then California police have also using Flock's AI-powered license plate reader to investigate immigration protesters, not just the people who are being earmarked for deportation, but the protesters, while illegally sharing access with ICE, violating state sanctuary laws. There's a lot there, but this is a crackdown, and we are seeing a surveillance state now.
Yeah, so let's start with the first part, the fact that you have, Congress, their one duty is oversight. And the fact that you have the Department of Homeland Security and, frankly, every agency banning congressional members from visiting ICE facilities, arresting them when they're at the ICE facilities. This is absolutely, insane. And I don't understand why this has not like people aren't pushing back against this more because this is Congress's duty. There is a separation, of powers, and this is their duty to go to ICE facilities, one of their duties. And they are supposed to come, present who they are, and be admitted immediately. The fact that this regime doesn't feel like they have to adhere to the policy than the law of allowing these people to go. First of all, we don't even know what is happening in ICE. I mean, they are there to get answers, to find out if there's any kind of due process, which there isn't, being met. And this is their job. And we've
Yeah.
seen arrest after arrest after arrest and blocking. There were videos floating around several states that Congress members went to ICE facilities and they would just refuse entry.
And
This
they're not being
is
allowed. This 72-hour notice is not going to stand up in any court either. It's not. It's not. 72 hours you can clean up anything. So obviously, this is not a real allowing these Congress people to do their work. This is standing in the way of this branch of government doing their work, which is vital work for the furtherance of democracy. And this is when you start seeing the erosion of democracy is through things like this. When they can't do their work, then there's no one overseeing anything, and there's no way to examine what's going on. These other events where you've got the immigration protesters being surveilled using license plates, again, such an invasion of privacy and against the First Amendment, where people are allowed to protest and they are allowed to do so, express their free speech. Here you go again, and they're monitoring who these people are by tracking their license plates. It's just breathtakingly how far we've moved.
And how long have we been doing this tracker and warning about this? And we mentioned Flock at least on two other incidents last month.
Yeah,
And here you have, we've said over and over that immigrants are a test case. Immigrants, international students, these are test cases. And now you actually see the same surveillance powers, and data that they're fusing together or using certain surveillance mechanisms. Now it is turning on Americans. And this is just the beginning. I mean, this is the plan to turn this into a surveillance state.
yeah.
And that's
There's a story that I just posted on narrative.org about an Australian student who is also a journalist who covered the original protests at Columbia University. His ordeal is now being revealed in the New Yorker magazine. It is chilling what he went through in the 12 hours that he was interrogated, detained in a cell, a cold cell wearing only a blanket to keep him warm, no food basically except for a cup of noodles. And, ultimately they couldn't find anything on him. So they tried to pin a drug thing on him and ultimately sent him home to back to Australia. I mean, this is a journalist, a Substack journalist, everyone should point out, the first one that I'm aware of that has been deported based on their work on Substack. And to me, when I was reading about they didn't find anything, so they landed up with the drug charges. I just remembered all these cases out of the Kremlin, which is exactly what they do there. They can't find any things you pin on you. They'll pin some drugs on you, and that's how they get you out of the country. This is surveillance gone wild, and a real
yeah.
attack to the free press.
In Russia's case, it's opposite. In Russia's case, they plan drugs with one, two. arrest people, and two, to take hostages. Um, so in their case, they don't want to get people out of the country. In their case, every time they need to refill their pool of hostages, they find Americans, Westerners, that they can throw some drugs on and then, arrest them and charge them. And same thing they've done. I mean, this is so old, going, dropping drugs in apartments of
Mm,
journalists, activists, and then using it for arrest. But I mean, it's again, you see them monitoring everything, what people are writing,
mm,
what they're posting online. This is not, and with this story, since you mentioned your story, which I
mm,
suggest everyone to read, with this story also comes that now the State Department, restarted visas, issuing visas for students, and their condition is, besides very heavy vetting, is that they're going to search social media to make sure there's no criticism of Trump, no criticism of the policies and whatnot. I mean, this is how Russia operates.
mm.
I mean,
It's so,
for
so
people
interesting.
like me, if I stepped in, I'd be arrested. But someone like you, if you apply
Oh,
for a
I would.
visa, they'll check
I have a
your
green card. I couldn't go in there. I don't think they'd kick me. They'd arrest me
yeah,
right away or deport me, even with a
they're
green
not
card.
gonna, they wouldn't even let you. They
Yeah.
just would scan your social media. It doesn't align with the, thoughts of this country, and just not
Well, this is
issue
what
a
Alistair
visa.
Kitchen, the journalist, was saying: is that they were ready for him. That they before he even boarded the plane in Australia, they had already done all their research on who he is. They had a whole profile on him. This is not the old custom border and police. This is a
No.
Palantir empowered, AI driven research thing that's gets a lot of information about people when they arrive. It's very chilling what's going on because it's obviously the thought police and the freedom of the press that's being attacked.
And it went back to the same. I mean, we saw this in March when a
Mm,
French scientist came for a conference and they wouldn't let him in the country because he wasn't critical of Trump. He was critical of what's happening to science here,
yeah.
and the contracts being canceled. So I mean, we're seeing a lot of abuses of power, and this is, I mean, they really have gone out of control with this, and it's only the beginning. That's the sad part.
That is the sad part. Is that as Obama was saying, this is still just the very beginning. There's this is going to test everybody and test their principles, and it sure is on a daily basis. Well, that's a Trump tyranny tracker for today. It's day 150. You asked how many days we've been doing this for. Well, we started on day 100. So 50 days later, we're still here. And we'll be here for a while, hopefully. We'll be back tomorrow with another Trump tyranny tracker. Everyone should subscribe to Olga's amazing Substack, the Trump tyranny tracker, or Unmasking Russia. And you can also find my work and that story we're just talking about at narrative.org. That's NARATIV.org. I'll be back in about 40 minutes with Dean
Yep.
Blundell as we do the five stack, the five biggest stories of the day right here on Substack. Have a great day, everybody. And thanks for being here. Cheers. Bye, Olga. Cheers.